I'm going to go ahead. Well, that was all for naught. Yeah, the tubes on this old 1960s Mark VII are in bad shape. So the PVC pipe is here for that next project. But I also need to get this machine stripped down a little bit. I've got to get all the wax off of it for what I have planned next. So, I showed this a couple years back in, I think it was the 25-hour maintenance where we took the headstock off of the machine. Well, I'm going to take the headstock off. I'm going to take the carriage off. I'm going to take the upper tubes, the way tubes, off of this machine. And I just kind of want to walk through that process with you. You may need to do this at some point, especially if these tubes have become rusty or pitted. So in order to get the headstock off, you need a piece of 2x4 or lumber that's at least long enough to span the table tubes. And this is going to go down here on the bench tubes. And we're going to raise the table up and set the table tubes on top of that board. In my case, it is a 2x4. All right. And make sure our carriage is locked. And actually, before I do this, I do want to do one more thing. Let me slide the headstock down a little bit here. Make sure the headstock and the carriage are locked. I'm going to go ahead. Well, that was all for naught. I'm going to go ahead and take the tie bar off the top here. And these are set screws on the back. Sometimes these set screws are on the top. It just depends on the vintage of your machine. Back when these were introduced back in the 50s, the set screws were here, and the set screws down on the bottom, you had to stand the machine up into the drill press position, and with a long 5/32 wrench, come under here, and you had to get around that pivot rod and get up into that set screw. About 20 years ago or so, Shopsmith moved the set screws to the top of that casting, and you'll see here in a minute, we'll access those from here and here now. So let's go back with the 2x4. Love having to repeat myself. There we go. And bring the headstock out this way a little bit, and then begin to crank the table down. So you can see as we move the table down, the tubes press against the 2x4, and that allows us to lift the machine up and hold it up high enough that we can slide the headstock off. Oh, I wasn't ready for this. I also need to get my cord into a manageable position because I don't want to have to fight with the cord once we get that off. So I typically come up and over and around kind of a figure 8 pattern here around the headstock. And we'll just pass that through here. And now we just loosen the headstock and slide it off. Next, I'm going to get the table and carriage off. For this, I'm going to bring this back down, tilt my table to the 90-degree position, kind of like you would put in the drill press position, and lift that out. Set that aside. Now we can slide the carriage off. Now we have this rubber spacer. It's important not to lose that. So I typically will put that together with the headstock. Sometimes I'll just pass it over this quill handle, the lever. And now we can slide the carriage off. And do this, trying not to drop the tubes. There we go. Now, I want to get all the wax out of the headstock casting, out of the carriage casting, and you can see how the bottom side of this casting, where it doesn't ride against the way tubes, it's nice and clean. But if you look at the top half, it's got quite a bit of wax built up in there, quite a bit of gunk. So I want to get all that out. I'm going to use mineral spirits to clean all of this off initially to get down to bare metal. And then to get these tubes off, you'll find it's easier again to do this with the tubes vertical. And some folks will mark the location of what they prefer to have as the top or bottom. If I did this with a magic marker here, once I clean it, that mark would just go away. You could use a scratch off, scratch a little mark in it, and just know that that's the side that goes down. But with a little bit of a twist, after loosening the set screws, these tubes will lift right out. And it's always surprising to me. I don't even know how this happens. It's always surprising to me how much sawdust winds up down inside of this casting. I'm not even sure where that's coming from to get to that point. Probably generated over on that side from sanding, probably gets into the tubes, and then they wind up dropping down in the drill press position. But always surprises me about that. So we're now at the point that if you had very pitted or very rusty tubes, you could drop these down in the PVC pipes and use any number of approaches. Nick Engler, about 103 years ago in a sawdust session, used potatoes of all things. I will not be using potatoes. I'll link to a channel. A gentleman named Alan has recently started posting videos as he is restoring a mid-1950s Mark V, what is known as a greenie among most of us fans. Now, he's taking a different approach than me as far as what chemicals he's using, but taking the same approach with the PVC pipe. I'll follow up in a video very soon, but I'm crazy busy this week, celebrating a bunch of family birthdays and busy at work and all that jazz. So stick around. Make it a great week.